welcome back. Doug, thank you so much for joining us. This is really exciting. You are the Alec Baldwin to Saturday Night Live what Alec Baldwin is to Saturday Night Live is to this podcast because you're my returning guest. And hopefully that's a starting of many, many returns. So thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Yeah.
And why don't you reintroduce yourself to folks who might not know you from season one, but
Okay.
anyway.
Sure. Absolutely. So my name's Doug Gordon. I live in Stratford area, Ontario, and Dennis and I have known each other. I think last time I figured this since 1990, so 35 years, pretty much at this point. And I just kept in touch, and we've discovered this joint love of gardening together. I tend to do quite a bit of native plant gardening, so that's kind of been when we've talked about the focus. That's kind of a big part of it for me, and so I'm happy to be back. Dennis, thanks for inviting me again.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much. And it's daunting to think that we've known each other that long, which means that
Yeah.
we really are old.
Yeah, we really
That's
are.
okay. I'm okay with it. It's what it is.
Agreed.
Brilliant. Okay, so the focus of our episode today is on resources that we've found that have been helpful for us in our gardening practice. So we're both going to go back and forth and share some things, and hopefully this will be helpful for listeners. But I'm going to hand it to you to start us off. So what resource would you like to share with us?
I thought we could start with the one that I think, because my focus again is on native plants. So up my three resources I've just going to want to talk about are all native plant related. But the first, I kind of decided to talk about them in terms of authors. So, or the person that, started the resource. So the first one I thought of was Doug Tallamy, which is sort of the classic native plant sort of guru, guy that's kind of tried to really get people to plant native plants. So he has a number of books. The one that's I think probably most people would know first is Bringing Nature Home, which is quite a nice little paperback book, lots of pictures. And so his basic idea is that, if we increase native plants in our gardens, we're increasing habitat, one yard at a time. That's kind of his idea. He's got a number of books. The one that I think has been quite popular and maybe growing in terms of the native plant community is called Nature's Best Hope, and that has started a whole movement called the Homegrown National Park. So his idea is that you can make a national park out of all these little yards, right? And by increasing habitat. So any of his books are great. Some of his studies and research goes into how many insects can eat a specific plant, and sort of geared to maximizing the number of insects that can use that native plant. And so the difference is quite striking between non-native and native plants. It can be I think there's maybe 10 insects that use a very good introduced plant, exotic plant, and there's often hundreds that use a native plant. So yeah, that's the basic idea. Any of his books are fantastic, and if you're interested in native plants, that would be a good place to start.
I love it. And I'm loving the fact that we're starting off talking about Doug Tallamy, because you and I both share this love of the work that Doug has done over the years. And it was actually one that I was going to share as well, although mine is not a book. Knowing that you would probably come in with a book idea, I wanted to come in with the way I was originally introduced to Doug Tallamy, which was through a YouTube video. And I think the first one, which was 11 years ago on YouTube, that I was introduced to him was it was Eco Beneficial. That's the YouTube channel, and Eco Beneficial did an interview with him, and it's about a half an hour long. And again, it's Eco Beneficial interview Dr. Doug Tallamy in his garden and the importance of native plants, and that sort of started it for me in terms of understanding how amazing this person was to the world of naturalization and gardening. And it puts on its head this weird idea that gardeners are looking to make a pristine environment that is absent of any pests or insects. And in fact, the idea of having more insects in your garden is beneficial, not just because you want pollinators, but of course you want pollinators, but because they become the food for the good predators that come in and then eat the bad things as well. And also just the web of life that is created by having any type of insect in your garden, right? So that you're getting more birds,
Absolutely.
amphibians, you're getting all of these things that you need to have a thriving, beneficial ecosystem in your garden, which is, as you said, part of Doug's bigger picture of like a national park worth of gardens that are spread across the country. So 100%.
Yeah.
Doug telling me
Yeah.
list as well, but mine was from YouTube, and I love the fact that
That's good.
you're with this. Yeah, it's great. So
Yeah. Yeah.
folks who don't have the time to read but can put on an episode
Yeah.
in the background can have both of those things.
The other piece that is kind of interesting, you made me think about something I've kind of been working through my own garden because we're a few years into a new yard with all native plants. And one of the things that's interesting is you suddenly see like a bunch of tussock moth caterpillars that destroy your milkweed or whatever, right? And you go, oh no, like we gotta get rid of these things. So you gotta get that whole mentality is flipped on its head. You don't get rid of things, you
Yeah,
let it happen. And you
exactly.
know that your native plants generally are resilient enough to recover the next year. They're not gonna you're not going to die off because of something like that, or rabbits or whatever. There could be a bunch of different things will be in your garden. So it takes time, and I found that for me, I have to like guard a lot of the plants initially because rabbits will come and eat them. So then eventually, I take that away once they get big enough and they've been established, and the root systems are in, then just let it go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an
I love,
interesting concept.
yeah, I do. I think it is a really interesting concept. And for me, I'm not as rigid in that I don't have to have every single one of my plants being a native, but I'm trying to increase the number of natives mixed with
Yeah,
others that aren't from necessarily this specific region. And partly, I think there's something about adapting to climate change as well, right? Because we know that those relationships that exist between plants and animals are also going to evolve further. They're not going to be static because of the change in climate that we're experiencing. So
right.
I love the idea of having some natives that are maybe marginally native, like they might be the same climate zone, but they aren't necessarily native to this specific location. So for me,
Yeah,
I've started to like try to balance out a whole bunch of natives, some that are sort of maybe marginal or sort of not far off
absolutely.
location,
Yeah,
then a few exotics as well. I mean, it's more than a few.
that's right. I think that's exactly it. I mean, I think, getting into just like the idea of even just trying to get 10% native at the beginning, because generally our gardens tend to be almost all non-native, right? Like that's what we buy, unless it specifically says native or they're near natives or not quite in our area. Like coneflower, for instance, isn't native to our area, but yet it's just across the border in the U.S.
Yeah,
And so you can bring it here, and the same pollinators will use it as like native pollinators. We still use that plant, so it's kind of like slowly working our gardens towards more habitat oriented and less, less human oriented
yeah.
for the sake of the flowers or whatever. Yeah, or the foliage. Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's our each one of our first ones. That's great. Thank you so much. Move on to your second resource that you want to share with folks.
Okay. So what I did, I looked at like books because that's kind of where it's all started for me. And there's a few authors. The other one that I found really helpful is William Kalina.
Mm.
William Kalina is like a New England, worked for New England Wildflower Society, and he's got a bunch of books. This isn't a visual one, but I'll show Dennis them anyways. This one's native ferns and moss and grasses.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Quite a good book, yeah. It kind of gets into the propagation of these things, and then the one I started with like 30 years ago, almost now, is wildflowers, growing and propagating wildflowers. So what he gives you there is you can look it up as a reference for your plant. He's got ones on orchids, he's got one on trees and shrubs, that kind of stuff. So I use that sort of to say, hey, is this going to be a good site for the plant that I'm planting? What does it need? What's the sunshade mix? So it's kind of more of a reference for native plants in general. Those
Love it.
books. Yeah.
I'm a
Yep.
sucker for ferns, so
Yeah.
I love the fact that you've got one that actually includes ferns, and that fits really nicely with planted where the sun don't shine. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And we will add in the liner notes for this episode the resources that we're sharing, just the actual information, so folks can follow up. I have a book as well. This book was one that kind of blew my mind, and so I love this author. And it turns out a colleague of mine was just awarded something in the Ottawa area for it's an annual award, and this author was also awarded the same award this year as well. So like
Wow.
my
Wow.
colleague was on stage with this person, and this person is a hero for me. So it's Diana Beresford-Kroeger's Arboretum America, um,
Uh,
which is all about native trees to North America, and it specifically goes into the stories that Indigenous folks have around specific native trees from across Turtle Island or from across North America. I love this book. It really pushed me to think beyond, oh, I want to plant an oak or I want to plant a maple, which of course are really good and foundational species. And of course it goes with what Doug Tolmie would talk about. When you plant a red oak, you're creating habitat and a food source for like hundreds of different species of insects. And it's really, really important. But also Arboretum America gives you like insight into some of these trees that, just you're not really familiar with unless you're spending a lot of time out in native forests that haven't been inundated with introduced species, right? So, like
Absolutely.
the native tulip tree and, other things that are just like mind-blowingly beautiful. It was
Yeah.
Beresford-Kroeger who introduced me to that. So I love this
Oh
resource.
yeah.
I would encourage folks, if you're looking for a tree for your yard, or if you've got the privilege and benefit of having a bigger space and you want to like inundate your space with a whole bunch of really cool trees, check this one out. Oh, the other one that is in the book that I was introduced to because of her was shagbark hickory. Um, and shagbark,
Yeah.
I don't think is actually native to Nova Scotia. I have to double check it, but I planted it because it's such an important species, according to Diana, for climate change because it's really, really slow growing. And so it's constantly like absorbing all of this carbon from the atmosphere as it's growing and embedding it in its tissue. So like the shagbark hickory is a really, really important species because of this slow growing nature and its ability to like store or sequester carbon. And
Yeah.
so like for me, this book is really, really important.
So
No, I
she was my next one as well.
brilliant.
This is her other book. This one's called Arboretum Borealis, which may be even more pertinent to Nova Scotia, for instance, because America is almost like Carolinian and a little bit more into like mixed forest.
Yeah,
But this one here may be the same kind of thing for the boreal forest parts of Nova Scotia. But I agree. I think she is fantastic. Her, just to expand on what you've said there, the idea of bioplanning that she gets into, where she kind of gets into species, how they work together,
yeah.
how they can partner together, and she looks a lot at like human benefits too of these trees, how planting one near your house can benefit you, and also about the shagbark. She also talks about the shellbark, which is one that's even more south, and that's kind of what she calls a king nut, which is a huge
Yeah.
edible hickory nut.
Yeah.
And so she's got a lot of stuff. She's big on hickories, which in our area are very common and an important part of the forest. We're a little bit further north from the shagbark and shellbark area, but that's still a pretty important. We have mainly the bitter nut hickory here in southwestern Ontario. So
I love the
yeah,
fact that we didn't plan this and both of us chose one of Diana's books. And
yeah.
I
So
knew that Borealis had been released and it's been on my list to like, I've got to pick this up sometime. I got to pick this up.
yeah.
So good.
It's very good. And then the other book that sort of introduced me to her was this one, The Global Forest. I
Of
don't know if
course,
you've read
yeah.
that one, Dennis.
Yeah.
That's kind of more of a philosophical slash scientific,
Mhm.
concept of what works in the forest. And compared to, her history is she was raised in Ireland. She has some Celtic background where the old Celtic ways were taught to her, and so she tried to combine that with some of the science of her later biology and things that she took. And the other side of it is too her she's got quite a bit of connection with Indigenous people in North America, as you said. Yeah. So that's yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
I love that she hands down that traditional knowledge that she's learned, and it is combined with the scientific. So there's
Yeah.
a concept here in Mi'kmaq, or in this greater part of the Atlantic region in Canada, which is the traditional unceded homeland of the Mi'kmaq, and it's two-eyed seeing, right, where it's like combining
Yeah.
traditional ways of knowing and traditional ideas with scientific modern approaches as well. So it's not like you're choosing one over the other, but it's the combination of those things through two eyes.
Absolutely.
And I think it
Absolutely.
sort of comes to life in Diana's. writing, even if it's not necessarily always connected to Indigenous folks, but it
Yeah,
is oftentimes the stories that she does tell are informed by that connection to
that's right.
communities that
That's right.
you know.
And then just to trigger off of that for people that are interested in that vein, you have Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Have you read that book, Dennis?
I haven't. No, no.
That's the same sort of idea. She's a Anishinaabe.
Hmm.
Can't remember exact the I can't remember the exact group she's from, which nation she's from, but it's part of the Anishinaabe group
Hmm.
from Wisconsin. And her that whole book is basically what we've just been talking about. It's like the Diana Beresford-Kroeger version of indigeneity, right? Very
Yeah.
good stuff. So that's another area. It's not so much about gardening, but it's more about sort of bringing science and nature and beauty together
Hmm.
in a bigger picture. So yeah,
Brilliant. Love it. Love
yeah.
it. Okay, so we've got Doug Tell we both came with. We've got Diana's work that we both come with. What's your final resource that you?
So Diana was my final one, but I've got a couple of I call them honorable mentions
Okay.
because these have been very important to mostly I guess more recently. Although well, one is more recent. Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast is one that I listen to regularly. Guys are from New Jersey. They run a native plant nursery there. And they're pretty fun, but they look at all sorts of things. They're bringing guests, like talking about pawpaws, for instance, or whatever, something like that, right? So it's a whole range of different topics related to native plants. And again, native plants are part of the shade gardening idea, but it expands beyond that. But it's still the same. There's still so many native plants that are shade tolerant. And so the other one I would say I'll do both these at the same time because last one is something I've been involved with since late '90s. When I got my first membership was the North American Native Plant Society. That's out
Oh,
of Toronto, and membership's about $25 a year. You can belong to that. They send a really good newsletter. You can get the digital one or the print one. They send it out every quarter, and it highlights one plant, and then they do a bunch of other information. They also run in Toronto area. They run a very good native plant sale that has like rare stuff like green dragon and stuff like that in it. Some really strange stuff that you can't get anywhere else. That's another resource, and they also have a seed exchange.
oh,
So
love it.
so that's NAP, sorry, NANPS.ca. We'll put that in the show notes, but that's their website. Yeah.
I love that you've mentioned that because it does relate back to something from season one as well, where I've talked about the idea of joining local gardening clubs or regional or national clubs that are associated with specific plant groups or whatever, and being able to access plants and seeds that you wouldn't normally have access to, right? Like that is such a
Right.
benefit of becoming a member of a gardening club. And we
Yeah.
have a couple of seed exchanges from the clubs that I've been involved with and or plant sales. And it's just it becomes almost a highlight of my year, quite honestly. Like
Yeah.
there's one locally here that is the Valley Gardeners Garden Club, I think is what it's called. And every year in May they have a plant sale, and it's like the best. The prices are always amazing. There's like
Yeah.
plants that you can get, and then also there's at the Harriet Irving botanical garden at Acadia University. Annually, there's the native plant sale, and it's great. There's a few local nurseries that will come and sell things. And actually, I bought some things there this year based on the last time you came on the show, which was foam flower, uh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tiarella. So I specifically
Yeah.
bought Tiarella, and then I found the supplier of that and went back and bought more of them later in the year because I expanded a garden and I had more spots for it. So it was like, I want more Tiarella, I want more foam flower, and I'm mixing
It's a
it
great
with
plant.
yeah, I'm mixing it with Heucherella and with Heuchera. So like the three sort of interconnected species that often get crossbred to create, well,
A
Heuchera,
hybrid.
Tiarella being crossbred to make Heucherella, and all three become like really cool looking plants in the garden, right? So
Nice. Nice.
do have native species from this area as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, that's the other side of this too. Is there are many local Facebook groups as well to join if you're interested in some kind of like any horticultural society stuff. There's so many of those. So that's just look it up in your local area. I have one. I belong to several here in Southern Ontario.
Love it.
Yeah.
Two things that I want to honorably mention as well. One is an app, and I've found this really, really useful. It's PlantNet, and I was like super skeptical, like relying on a device to tell me what plant is in front of me. But like sometimes you're just looking at something and you can't figure out what it is. And PlantNet is actually really quite good. It's connected to Cornell University, I believe, and
Okay.
a giant database that they manage.
Yeah.
And so you take a photo of either the leaves or the fruit or the flower or whatever it is, and then you can identify it. And they give you the percentage of certainty that it is been identified
That's
as
good.
a species. So even if it's not like perfect, it gives you something to then explore further. So I found PlantNet to be really a helpful app when I'm just wandering around and I just need to know what something is. I pull it out and take a picture. And the other one is an online resource, and this has been something where I can verify whether something is or isn't a native species. And I found this like super helpful over the years. Ladybird Johnson wildflower
Yeah.
at the University of Texas at Austin, and we went to Austin not this year but last year. Ian and I, my partner and I, went to Austin, and I really wanted to go to Wildflower Center, but like we didn't have enough time, and it was like a little bit hard to get to because it's like not right in Austin, but it's University of Texas is well, Texas is huge, and University of Texas
Yeah.
is big, and Austin is big, and anyway, all that to say, if you're not sure if you're going to be planting something that is native or not, the Wildflower Center, Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, is such a good resource. You can type in the
Yeah.
species, you can figure out whether or not it is, because they will list out, where it is actually native, and or where it's like sort of known to be, but where it is specifically native, and you can like check against your location. So I've found that to be like an incredible resource over the years because it's like, as you said, echinacea, it's a native species. Everyone plant it. It's great for the pollinators and stuff, and it is. But like, there are a whole bunch of different types of echinacea, and some are native here, some are native, out west, some are native south of us,
Yeah.
etc. So it's really great to be able to dive in and find the specificity around native plants. And
Yes, I had thought of that as well. I thought of that resource. I thought "Oh, that's a good one too." But
yeah,
you run out of options. There's so many good things. I have often found if I'm looking for something very specific to my area, type in your state or province, and then type in the plant species, and it will show you a map of where it is in that part in the province. If you're really concerned about getting, I'm really good with near natives. If that's fine with me, and some exotics are fine with me too. But that's sort of the way I figure it out sometimes. So yeah. That's a
amazing.
good thing.
Brilliant. Okay, well, it wouldn't be a Plant It Where the Sun Don't Shine episode if we talk about a few shade plants that we love or that we want to talk about in this episode. In this episode, I'd really love to hear, since we chatted previously about some of the plants that you have in your garden. But if there's anything new, maybe one or two new things that you've stumbled across, maybe this year, that you wanted to share with the listeners, that yeah is interesting or
Sure.
something to share.
Yeah. So I kind of, when you asked me that question ahead of time, I kind of thought, okay, so what's been important to me this year? Because that's kind of how it's since we talked last year. So I picked three of them that I've been really focusing on in my garden this year. The first one would be yellow lady slipper.
Oh,
I've had one that's been growing for a number of years, and this year I think I had 6 or 7 blooms. But it was at one point it was in a container for quite a while, and it had no blooms, and it's come back to about 5 or 6. But I've had that same plant up to like 12, 15, 18 blooms at other years. They're a little bit harder to find. There are sources. There's a guy I got some. Just got another lace. I got a showy lace slipper from a gentleman in Whitby, Ontario. That they're expensive to get those kind of orchids, but they are available. The other next one I chose was northern maidenhair fern, which
oh,
is a which I've had a plant for a couple of years, and this year I didn't think it was even going to come up, and then it came up, and I was just nurturing it all summer. And mine's very short at this point, but they're just a beautiful. Are you familiar with them, Dennis? That
they're one of my favorite ferns, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
Maidenhead ferns are just so, the delicateness of them and that black
exactly.
stem, love them. Yeah.
Uniqueness around the way that this swirl and stuff like that is quite beautiful. And then the other one that's been is a shrub, and that is the American witch hazel. So I have started growing them in my garden here. I have two of them at this point. Both of them are bloom. Both of them are blooming right now, but one started in September and the other one's still blooming. They're late bloomers, which is kind of cool. They have a really interesting shape to their flower. It's kind of spidery. You can get them in different colors, but mostly they're yellow here. The ones they're native to here are yellow. So yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
And like, it's funny because witch hazel was on my list. Um, we're like, we're so in sync. Um, So, for listeners of the podcast, I've made reference to this. Earlier this year, my dad passed away, and some of my colleagues gave me a gift certificate to one of the local nurseries to be able to purchase some plants to commemorate my dad's passing. And one of the things I wanted to do was have something a little bit more permanent. So I wanted to either do a tree or a shrub, and I have loved witch hazel for decades, and I've never ever had one, which is really strange because like
Yeah,
they're fairly common, and it's not
yeah,
mind, and they're native, and they're so cool. That flower is so cool, and there's the medicinal benefits from witch hazel.
yes.
People use it as a tonic, and it's really cool. So I also have witch hazel on my list because I finally have one, and it's in commemoration of my dad, which is lovely.
Oh, lovely.
For folks who don't
Okay.
know, it's Hamelis, and it's really, really, really a beautiful one. My other two, one of which was kind of inspired from our conversation the previous time, which was hepatica. So I had previously, in a previous garden, had hepatica, but not in the current garden that we had. And so I was like, after talking with you, I was like, you know what? I need to get more hepatica. So I found one really cool hepatica, but it is it's a hybrid, so it's a cross. But actually, then later this summer, also picked up a couple of the native species ones. So it's the
Good.
liver liverwort or liver leaf, I guess is what it's called.
Yeah.
Um, Hepatica is now in the garden, and I'm really
Awesome. Awesome.
to credit that to you for inspiring me to get back in there. And then the last thing that I had this year that sort of was maybe not new to me, but new to this garden, and I can't remember ever actually planting it previously, and I don't know for sure that it's native here to Nova Scotia, but Canadian wild ginger. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's native to Canada. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's actually native. I think it is native to Nova Scotia. I'll have to double check. But Asarum canadensa, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's got almost like a heart-shaped leaf, and the flower is really cool in that it's like really dark burgundy, but almost like a cup-shaped thing, really low to the ground. It makes for
Yeah.
a great ground cover. So yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. That's a great plant. Yeah. Yeah. And also edible. You can use that. We've used that for
Yeah,
ginger tea, the root and stuff. Very beautiful plant. Lots of it in Southern Ontario here.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I love it. I actually have the non-native, the European wild ginger. I've got that one as well.
Okay.
It's got the really glossy leaf, and it's rounder than the Canadian ginger, that
Okay.
more pointed heart-shaped leaf. And I got them both going to see like which one does better and which one fills out the space more. And but I love them both. But the Canadian wild ginger, it's that flower is really cool.
It is. It is. It's fantastic. Yeah. And that's another ant pollinated one. I think we talked about bloodroot last time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, bloodroot's another one that's ant pollinated. So they, yeah, or not pollinated, but ant propagated. So the ants will take that and bury it in their ant hills, and then often that's how they repropagate. But pretty interesting, those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm really
Yeah.
hopeful for. I really want them to take a whole bunch of seed and plant it everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've had regeneration. It's been interesting, just natural. I had cardinal flower here. This is the first year we've noticed them in two different spots in our garden that we never planted them.
Mm.
We live next to a forest that's quite overgrown with wild garlic, which is also native but can be a little bit aggressive. So I'm hoping that in time that will spread into those woods. Some of our plants from here will spread into those woods and increase the native population in those woods. So yeah,
Well, fingers crossed. Fingers
yeah.
crossed.
Fingers crossed. We'll see. We'll see.
Doug, thank you so much for joining again. This has been really great. I love spending time with you, even if it
Oh
is
yeah.
far away. But
Yeah.
it was really appreciated. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll include in the liner notes some references to the material that we talked about. So hopefully, folks will be able to benefit from what we've talked about in written form as well. Thank you again. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dennis. Appreciate it anytime.
Thanks for listening. Thanks also goes to Sherry Donegan, Jonathan Scott, and of course, Ian Jefferson for brainstorming podcast name ideas with me. Credit goes to Sherry on that one. If you have thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, please email me at plantitwherethesundon'tshine@gmail.com. That's one word without the apostrophe. You can also follow the show on Instagram at plantitwherethesundon'tshine with Dr. Dennis. Hosting is provided by Spotify for podcasters. Until next time, thanks for listening. Go plant it where the sun don't shine.